Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, we just finished watching rounds 2 through 7 of the NHL Draft. It's officially behind us, and despite no trades, it's always a cool event watching these kids live out their lifelong dreams.
And we're excited to introduce you to the 5 newest members of the Ottawa Senators. And Ross, they all have one attribute in common.
And we'll get into what that is and more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 831 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains, we want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. That's eBay Motors. Today is Thursday, June 29th. It's a late recording because we've just sat through almost 250 picks of the NHL Draft. The Senators have added 5 players, and Pilsy, the suspense is killing me. What do these all have in common?
Well, as almost every Ottawa Senator drafted under the man scouting regime, all of these players have size. Not a single one is under 6'2".
And their first selection, Hoyt Stanley. We'll get into each individual player, basically do our profiles that we did for the draft eligibles, but he's the one I'm most excited about. The Sens started out with pick number 108, drafting a right shot defenseman. Then they take a left shot defenseman, a centerman, a goalie, and then another forward, a center, right winger in there as well. But let's focus on Hoyt Stanley, the first pick. Right. What did you see from him, from his profile right off the bat?
Ross, when they announced Hoyt Stanley, I hadn't heard of him before, which is very typical for Ottawa Senators draft pick. I immediately had Elite Prospect, the name search, the bar blinking, ready to type in the newest prospect. And Hoyt Stanley was a guy I was very pleasantly surprised with what I found out about him because, first off, right-hand shot defenseman with size and can put up points as well. And it seemed like he was a guy that was very highly touted by kind of the rest of the scouting community, as EP had him at 84, McKeen's had him at 64, and Pronman at 92, and the Ottawa Senators end up selecting him at 108th overall.
Seems like good value. Something different for a change, where we're not seeing the internet scouts and everyone just saying, oh my goodness, they reached for this guy. Yeah. No. Hoyt Stanley with the Victoria Grizzlies has really kind of come up, and he missed a lot of time, not this year, but last year with injury. So for him to come back after only playing 13 games his first year in the BCHL, to put up the kind of numbers he did. Now his team lost out in the first round of the playoffs. He had 1 assist in 4 games during that series. But man, you just see some potential in him as a guy who can kind of be that all-around defensive. Pilsy, don't take this the wrong way. I think he reminds me a lot of Jacob Bernard-Docker, for better or worse. Just kind of like a no-nonsense defenseman, a guy who's going to be steady at the next level, but maybe you want to see a more defining attribute, like one thing that gets you out of your seat.
Yeah, and that's fair. I would say his defining attribute, Ross, though, is his mobility. Like EP mentions, they love his mobility, and his good skating allows him to be a big part of the transition game. They talk about how he likes to pinch and get involved offensively. And I mean, 38 points in 53 games, that definitely shows that. And then hockey writers, they mentioned that he's a really great passer. So I think he might have a little bit more offensive touch than JBD. And then you've got that size, 6'3", 205. Like, honestly, on paper, Hoyt Stanley has the makings of a really good prospect.
Yeah, Corey Pronman calls him a pure toolkit. Or that he has one, that he kind of a jack of all trades, a right shot defenseman who can rush pucks up ice and just looks like an NHL defenseman. Scott Wheeler, who had him ranked 98th, says he projects as a two-way puck transporter, and I see legitimate NHL potential. So he's still a little raw in some areas, and Wheeler expects him to blossom in college. And he's going to Cornell, which isn't necessarily known as a hockey hotbed, but he spoke to Ian Mendez right after being picked, said that education is a huge thing for him and his family. So that's why he went that direction instead of going to Everett that has his WHL right. So never say never. We saw Tyler Boucher go to college and then end up in major junior. It's not unprecedented to do that, but I think we'll see him at Cornell for at least a couple seasons. Because you mentioned the one thing about this draft class that all stands together is their height, but also a lot of long-term gambles. We did see an overager in the 7th round. The Sens love taking overagers, but even he is just going to college next season. They drafted out of the BCHL with 3 of their 5 picks in that one. And I just see, I should say 2, because Vladimir Nikitin, the goalie, will be in the BCHL next year, but they drafted him out of Kazakhstan's U20 circuit, which I'm curious to know how you identify talent in that league. It just seems like such an undercover league. Maybe we'll have to ask Pierre Dorian about that next week if we get the opportunity to speak with him. But yes, I think long-term bets were the play of the year for the Ottawa Senators this draft.
Yeah, and I mean, when you start your draft at the 4th round, 108th overall, you're probably not going to get too many pro-ready or 1 or 2 years away guys. So that's all right. And the Ottawa Senators, look, I know everybody likes to poke fun at them online. Wow, another big guy, another kind of guy no one really knows about, blah, blah, blah. But I've said this every year, and I'll repeat it again, Ross. I have respect that they stick to their scouting and drafting principles, and they don't give a damn what anyone else feels. And they'll often completely have their way of thinking and just disregard all other kind of attributes and all other things. And you know what? They tend to draft guys with good personalities, good characters. So I'm sure if they've interviewed and got a chance to meet a lot of these players, we're going to get another crop of just salt of the earth guys.
So elite prospects about Hoyt Stanley, the top pick for the Senators, quote, blends his edges off of every puck touch, whether he's sidestepping aggression with a step to the inside or cutting hard on his crossovers to accelerate past neutral zone defenders. His ability to exit his own zone with control is one of his best assets, whether it's through breakout passing or end-to-end carries. He exploits his mobility, as you mentioned, and large ice maneuverability to be a menace walking north to south. Okay, so good scouting report, if you ask me. February 4th birthday, West Vancouver native. We've got the ask out to Crooker for a scouting report because the panel mentioned right away that he's one of those guys that skates with Andrew Crystal, with Connor Bedard, which would mean, if you watched our live stream yesterday, that he skates with Angus Crookshank as well. So maybe tomorrow on the show or whenever we hear back from Crooker, we'll get a scouting report for you on Hoyt Stanley. But we got more prospects to get to today, Pilsy. We're going to take a quick break and then introduce you to the 4 other newest members of the Ottawa Senators organization, all of whom we expect to be on the ice in Ottawa next week with a quick turnaround to development camp. Keep it locked on Senators wherever you get your podcasts.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at AG1 Athletic Greens. Ross and I have been on the AG1 kick. Ross, you got to be at what, a 2 or 3 week straight of having AG1 every morning? How long is your streak here?
I've been going for a month and a half every single morning, AG1. And yes, I've added a little bit more to my activity routine, but I'm down 16 pounds right now. And I think AG1 has been a big part of it. It's been a really good way to make me start my morning the same way every morning. And I'm getting all the daily nutrition that I need to start my day.
Yeah, it's awesome. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery, focus, aging, all these things. And it's lifestyle friendly. So whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it's all good. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, and it still tastes good. So right now it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is go to athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, guys, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance from Athletic Greens.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Shawarma Palace. Eat like a royal at Shawarma Palace. It's Ottawa's only spot for shawarma since 1997, and I cannot wait till tomorrow when I get off the plane at YOW, and I am just going straight to Shawarma Palace. I'm going to get the chicken platter, extra garlic, but whatever you decide, whether it's chicken, beef, shawarma, falafel, a wrap, whatever you get, it's top quality about Shawarma Palace. So head there today or order online at Uber Eats, exclusive delivering partner of Shawarma Palace. 7 different locations all around Ottawa. Whether you go on Rideau Street, Bank and Hunt Club, you're never too far away from a Shawarma Palace. So head to Shawarma Palace today. Eat like a royal today. Eat at Shawarma Palace. All right, Pilsy. NHL Draft is in the books. No trades, but what was your overall thoughts over the last 24 hours? Because I almost feel like I'm in a daze. We had videos ready to go for all 32 picks yesterday. If you missed any of them or want to learn more about a specific selection wherever, you can do that on our YouTube, where I'm sure fans of the Buffalo Sabres, the Montreal Canadiens, they're all going to be poking fun at me because once again, all my favorite players, Jacob Fowler, Zach Benson, also Maxime Sturbach to Buffalo as well, they all went to division rivals. Like, what is it about me that attracts this from division rivals? I don't like it.
I don't know. Yeah, I feel bad for you, buddy, because it's honestly becoming a running joke now, especially the Habs mid to late draft picks. Maybe not how you would draft in the first round with Les Habitants, but definitely their later picks are right aligned with how you like to scout prospects.
Oh, brutal. But
speaking of which, Ross, not in the division, but how about the Philadelphia Flyers? Have a Sens draft. Flyers selecting Oliver Bonk and then Matteo Mann at the end as well. And there was one more player when they picked him. Oh, was it Denver Barkey?
Yep. And Cole Knuble, another son of a former player. So it was very much a guest of the show, actually. Remember, he was the head coach, Mike Knuble, of Jake Sanderson at the BioSteel game. So we had Mike Knuble on the show. And I think I mentioned, I was like, hey, your kid's pretty good. Turns out, yeah, it goes, I think it was 104th, right before the Sens pick. They took Cole Knuble. They got Oliver Bonk and Matvei Michkov. I know we don't like doing the winners losers. We joked about it last night. And if I were to do it, though, Philly had to be one of the best drafting teams today for sure. So, yeah, good on the Philadelphia Flyers. I mean, Chicago had a day too. I wonder what that conversation is going to be like between Connor Bedard and Adam Gajan, the goalie who made 54 saves against Canada, but Bedard had that unbelievable maneuver out from the corner and put it past him. They took him early in the second round too. Another player that
he was the first goalie selected, right, Gajan?
He was the first goalie selected. Yeah, Hrabal went right after, and then they started following suit. Bjarnason went soon after as well to Philly, I believe, as well. Bjarnason did.
Did he? Yeah, he did. You're right.
Yeah. So funny. We also learned that he also works with the goalie mindset guy. He was tweeting about.
That's awesome, him. Pete Fry.
Yeah, Pete Fry with Dylan Ferguson. So he was boots on the ground in Nashville at the draft. All right, let's get back to introducing everyone to the Senators selection. So we had Hoyt Stanley already. I would project him to not be playing in the NHL for 4 years. Like, it's going to be a long road. He's going to probably play two, if not 3 years at college, and then probably need a little seasoning in the AHL. But what about this next pick? A guy on the Kitchener Rangers. I'm sorry, Pilsy. They took someone from your rival team in back-to-back years after Tomas Amara last year. Now they're going with Matthew Andonovsky, a big physical defenseman that when I Google searched him, the first photo I found was him just pounding away on a hopeless, I don't want to say hopeless. He didn't jump him. It was a fair fight, but he got the better of him in that one.
Yeah, Matthew Andonovsky is a mean player, Ross.
SOB, eh?
Absolutely. Yeah, this kid does not hesitate to drop the gloves. He's got a few good tilts under his belt, which is especially in junior hockey these days. Like, you gotta have a lot of I don't know the right word, but
screws loose.
Well, screws loose, yeah, but like conviction, that's the word I'm looking for. Like, you're not just dropping the gloves for fun because they get hammered anytime you have a fight in the OHL and in any junior leagues now. So it's a big deal if you decide to chuck him. And he seems to do that. Ross, you tweeted out the video. He loves to agitate other players in warm-ups. I'll let you take it away because you love this.
I'm just going to say go to Twitter at Sens Central. We posted the video. It's hilarious. But no, just go on with the scouting report. I'll pull up the card here if you're watching on YouTube.
Nice. Yeah, so from what I found, Ross, is that he plays a physical shutdown game. He boxes out well in front of the net. And I just see him as being a guy that when you're lining up against him on a faceoff, you're like, oh man, I got to go up against Andonovsky again in front of the net. He's just making your life miserable. He's got a good size, 6'2", 201 pounds, left shot defenseman with the Kitchener Rangers last year in 67 games. He had 16 goals, 16 assists, no goals, 85 PIMs. But the one we're looking at here, and we wanted to highlight, Ross, is his plus 25 rating. Pretty impressive.
And for a guy who has that physical stature, he skates really well, and he's mean. He's got some Tyler Clevin in him. Let's put it that way, right? He's a big body. He's not afraid to throw it around. And I do like kind of the profile that he brings, although I would like it a bit more if they didn't take so many left shot defensemen last year. It just feels like they're just kind of loading up on the same type of player. He was second in plus minus on his team. Take that for what it's worth. I know it's plus minus. Okay. It's not the be all end all, but it is when you're comparing him to your teammates. That's pretty good. When Thomas Amaro was on that same team and was minus 25.
Yeah.
And he's plus 25. There's a pretty big difference between those two on that. He was with, what was the guy's name? Brusewicz.
Hunter Brusevich.
Hunter Brusevich was his partner all season long. Pretty yin and yang, where Brusevich was the offensively minded guy, but he can skate too. Andonovsky. Elite Prospects, though, gave him a F rating. So no surprise there. But I mean, that's after they liked Hoyt Stanley, but maybe he could work a little bit more on what he does with the puck while he's skating up. Like he's very aggressive, but sometimes needs to work on making the right play instead of, the most high risk one.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think Hockey Prospects, in their black book, they said he needs to improve his mobility and his puck movement. So, I mean, those are pretty kind of common negative aspects of bigger physical shutdown defensemen. So that doesn't surprise me too much. And it doesn't really hinder me much either. I just want him to focus on being that pesky guy, getting under other teammates or other opponents' skin, and just being really tough to play against, which I think is what he does really well. And we got a note on Twitter from my guy, Sebastian Jackson, saying that this is a player that we're probably really going to like, Ross, and he's going to get to see more time on ice because there's a couple Kitchener Ranger players. I'm just trying to find the tweet here that are moving on, and that's going to create space for him next season. So that's nice. You love to see that.
Okay, so we will take a very long look next year at Matthew Andonovsky, who goes off the board at 140th overall, a 6'2", 200-pound defenseman, left shot out of Kitchener in the OHL. Now, the Senators go back to BC for their third selection and 204th overall in the draft. They went with Owen Beckner, who is a centerman and, again, a project who's going to be taking a long road to the NHL. He's committed to Colorado College, but not for this year, Pilsy, for next year. So it's going to be quite a while, I think, before we see the fruits of the labor of this 204th overall pick.
Yeah, Ross, they clearly had their scouts focused on the BCHL, which is interesting because the BCHL seems to have fallen out of favor of a bunch of scouts. A guy that's been in the news lately, Alex Newhook, he came out of the BCHL, traded to Montreal, and he was a high pick. And there's a decent amount of players that were high BCHL picks, but that's kind of hasn't happened as much as of lately. So it's interesting that this is where the Ottawa Senators are really focused on. But Owen Beckner, 53 games with salmon arm, 17 goals, 33 assists, good for 50 points. And he wasn't scouted, wasn't ranked by a lot of our entities that we use, but there's definitely some things to like about this kid. And I mean, right away, Ross, you look at his size, 6'2". That's an Ottawa Senators pick.
It certainly is. I mean, Elite Prospects gave him a 5 for puck handling and a 5.5 for his physical game. That's on I believe it's like a 2 to 8 scale. They use a bit of a different scale there, but they have his skating as what he needs to work on the most. He's a February 27th, 2005 birthday. So kind of an average age for this draft. It was a productive season scoring wise, and he helped push his team to the third round of the playoffs where, I mean, they play Penticton, which is just kind of the best team, and they ended up going on to win the whole thing with Bradley Nadeau, among others. Victoria, BC, so he's a Vancouver Island guy, and EP says it's his defensive habits that could get him drafted. So we're going to see him, I think, project as kind of a bottom 6 guy if he does make it to the National Hockey League, and a guy who you're hoping can maybe round out his offensive game over the next 3-4 years at Colorado College. This is the definition of a project pick, and a pick where, yeah, you see the attributes that can make him a pro, but you're not going to rush him at all. I think it's a slow and steady grind for him all the way up, but excited to see what Owen Beckner can bring to the Senators one day in the organization. He's the 204th selection this year. We've got a goalie coming up. We're going to take one more quick break, get to a goalie who I'm really excited about, round out the Senators draft pick profiles, and then finish up today's show talking about the National League team, rumors about Travis Hamonic, and Jacob Larson. One day after not getting a qualifying offer, resigns for less. Why? We'll discuss after a quick break. You're listening to Locked On Senators. All right, Pillsy, Locked On Senators here right after the NHL Draft concluded in Nashville. Should we take another moment to thank David Poile? I will say, pretty cool moment at the end of the draft. The New Jersey Devils trading picks, literally just moving back, because Tom Fitzgerald, the GM for the New Jersey Devils, was the first ever captain of the Nashville Predators, where David Poile picked him, named him captain, and Barry Trotz was his coach. So for him to go over to the table and have that moment, that was pretty cool. That's what the NHL Draft is all about.
Yeah, definitely a cool moment. I think those are the kind of things where the real hockey nerds and the Nashville fans will really appreciate that kind of nod to the past.
And they get the photo in there too, commemorative. And then David Poile gets to say something on the mic at the very end.
Imagine Poile's like fleeced you one last time.
Well, hey, Aiden Fink, they took with that pick. It's kind of a nice shot, I think, in the 7th round. A nice upside pick. But with the Ottawa Senators, man, they took a goalie out of Kazakhstan. Vladimir Nikitin, 6'4", 190 pounds, but Pillsy, this guy's coming over to North American soil. So it's not going to be one of those where you're like, oh, he's going to be in the MHL, the VHL, the KHL. He's going to play 2 games. No, he's coming over and he's going to be in the BCHL next year for the Chilliwack Chiefs.
Yeah, I would love to. And hopefully we get a chance to do this, but pick Pierre Dorion's brain. Just be like, how did this guy end up on your radar, and not only on your radar, but as the goalie you choose to draft this year?
They haven't drafted out of Russia since 2007, and I want to say it's been even longer since they've drafted out of the Kazakhstan U20 circuit.
I'm going to go out on a limb, Ross, and say this is the very first Kazakhstan player they've ever drafted.
I will confirm in a moment. Go on with your scouting report.
All right. Well, it's there's not a lot that we really know about Vladimir Nikitin, to be perfectly honest, but he puts up great numbers in the situations he's in the U20 league in Kazakhstan. 24 games played, a 2.07 goals against, a .921 save percentage, 3 shutouts, and he had an 18-6 record. And he dominated in the U18 games he played. In 5 games, he had 3 shutouts, a 4-1 record, a 1.5 goals against, and a .936 save percentage. And then Ross, his numbers continue to impress. In 9 playoff games in that U20 league, he went 9-0. Is that good? A goals against of 1.56 and a save percentage of .925, and he had a shutout in there as well. And if you guys are looking for some tape on Vladimir Nikitin, our guy at Sens Prospects put together about a 1-minute highlight clip. And I don't know about you, Ross, but from that clip, I mean, it's not much. I was pretty impressed with how he looked.
I really hope he's at development camp. I want to get eyes on him because just the athleticism from those clips, man, he looks like he's very, very much an athlete. Let's put it that way. He's He's stretching out, making saves. He looked good. Let's put it that way from what the limited viewing, obviously, that we saw.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think it's great that he's coming over to North America. I think that's going to be a really big thing for him. Hopefully you get him kind of under the Sens eye sooner rather than later. I mean, he's going to be playing in the BCHL, so you got to think they've got lots of eyes over there. Look, I'm glad they took a flyer on this guy late in the draft in the 7th round. This seems like a really good value pick to me. I've been on record saying, and I think this is a generally universally accepted idea, that you should draft a goalie every single draft, no matter what, especially if you find a guy late in the 7th round that you think has some potential. So, like, honestly, I would try to spend at least, like, look at your 6th and 7th round picks and try to find a goalie there. I think that's a great way to get value. And I think with Vladimir Nikitin at 207th overall, the Sens did just that.
Not even the rarest country to get a goalie drafted this year. Team Italy had a goalie drafted as well earlier on in the day. So
nice.
Kind of cool. The goalies are coming from all over the world. And I bring that up because those two teams were in the Division 1, they call it, for the world under 18s. And they didn't play against each other. They were in different divisions. But man, Nikitin's numbers were ridiculous in that tournament. He had one hiccup. I'm not sure what happened in the game against Denmark. They lost 8-3. He had 6 goals against on 20 shots. But Pilsy, in the 4 other games, he had 3 shutouts and only allowed 1 goal, and it was against France. Now, again, the teams were Hungary, Japan, Ukraine, and France. Okay, this isn't like we're calling him the next Evgeny Nabokov or, you know, a guy of that caliber. But man, he's 6'4". He's got the frame, and again, I think it's a project. But I really like this bet on Vladimir Nikitin. And he comes in at number 207 in this NHL draft. And then the Senators went with another forward. I was very happy to see another forward taken with the final pick. And at 215th overall, it's going to be another shot in the dark. It's Nicholas Vantassell, who was ranked 164th among North American skaters by NHL Central Scouting. He's a U.S.-born kid from New Jersey, played in Green Bay in the USHL, and much like Cam O'Neill, who is going to University of Massachusetts, that's where you'll find Vantassell next year. He's also an overager. So he's born in 2004, 6'4", 196 pounds, right shot centerman.
Yeah, Vantassell is another guy that, look, I don't know a whole lot about, but it seems like that's another good value pick just based on his stats. 37 points in the USHL. Green Bay is one of the better teams from what I understand in that league. He's going to go to UMass. Great program to be in. And once again, it's a guy with size at 6'4". Now, EP guide, basically what they focused on with him is his hands. They actually said he has some of the best hands in the USHL, period. Whoa. So for a guy that's his size and has hands like that, you love to see that. They say he uses his full reach to handle the puck and can pull the puck across the other side so he can beat opponents. He beats goalies across the posts, and his hands also make him a better passer so that he can get into lanes with ease and then find open spots to hit teammates with a good crisp pass. So Vantassell is someone that we'll just have to wait and see to learn more about, but I think this was good value.
Yeah, and we're going to see him under the watchful eye of former Senators assistant coach Greg Carvel at University of Massachusetts. They've got a great program there that they've built up, and I just think it's a great place for him to take the next step in hockey. Yeah. Maybe a late bloomer. And you mentioned the hands, and at this part of the draft, you need that one separating quality that could make you a high upside pick. And not only is he 6'4", but height, hands. If he can round out his skating, I think we could see a good one in Nicholas Vantassell. That's your Senators 2023 draft class. Hoyt Stanley, Matthew Andonovsky, Owen Beckner, Vladimir Nikitin, and Nicholas Vantassell. Let us know in the comments who your favorite pick of those are for the Ottawa Senators. Speaking of the organization, though, Pilsy, let's wrap up today's show discussing what did and what didn't happen for the Sens. Reports are that yesterday the Senators offered Travis Hamonic a 1-year contract at a low AAV. I guess you can just call it low number because it's not an average if it's a 1-year contract. Darren Dreger says that the Sens would have to up their offer or else they'll lose him. I don't think that there should be a negotiation here. I think it's a courtesy that the Senators are saying, look, you did a lot for us. You did some great penalty killing for us. But if you're going to be asking for more than what Nick Holden made last year, which is $1.3 million, we got guys to fill that spot. If you want to go chase the money, power to you. I won't hold it against him, but I don't think the Senators should be in a bidding war with other teams when it comes to his services for next year.
No, me neither. And I think this is a situation where Pierre Dorion is trying to use some of the leverage he has, right? Like we saw that interview. Travis Hamonic seemed very candid, speaking, oh my God, I love being here. This is a great place for my family. I feel like I fit in.
Prove it.
Yeah, exactly. So the Ottawa Senators are saying, hey, you want to be here? We'd love to have you back, but we're not going to break the bank here. Are you
saying they're putting the hammer down?
Yeah, they're putting the hammer down on hammer here. And they could even say, look, you were kind of an overpayment while we had you on that contract that Vancouver signed and we traded for you. So I think, Ross, if they can get it done under 1.5 1 year, that works for me. And I think that would be great for both parties.
I hope so too. 2 thumbs up for potentially bringing in Travis Hamonic on a 1-year deal at $1.3 million or less. But honestly, anything else, you say thank you for your service, Travis Hamonic. It was fun, but we got to move on. And speaking of moving on, we thought that's what the Sens were doing with Jacob Larson. And then I did a little cap-friendly search when the news came out early this morning that the Senators were re-signing Jacob Larson to a 1-year contract worth $775,000 at the NHL level and $325,000 in the AHL. So he gets a good AHL salary.
Yeah, that's solid.
He played NHL games for Ottawa last year, and it's less than his qualifying offer. The Senators actually save $100,000 on this deal cap-wise.
Yeah, see, that's the kind of deals I think the Sens are going to have to start doing if they want to keep some of these fringe NHL players. We've seen a lot of them, the Logan Shaws, the Andrew Agassinos, the Paul Careys. Like, we've seen a lot of those guys that are top veteran players in the AHL and then kind of bottom depth guys in the NHL leave Belleville because they just know they're not getting those NHL chances. And if their AHL salaries are below 100,000, they're going to be able to find better value somewhere else. So I think this was a great move, upping Larson's AAV in the AHL to keep him around. Because look, I'm not going to say he's like a huge game changer, but in 55 games with Belleville, he had 17 assists. He's someone that's only 26 years old, 6'2", 190. Like, he's a serviceable defenseman, and you got to find ways to keep these guys around to not only provide experience and help the load of some of the younger prospects that are going to be in Belleville, but also if you need him to play 7 games in the NHL, which he did for the Sens, you can rely on him in a bottom 6 role.
Not 8? You can't rely on him for 8?
Can't be going to 8 games. No, I'm just kidding. But what I'm saying is basically if you need him in a pinch to come play in the NHL, that's a guy that DJ Smith would like to have for a couple of games.
Yeah, 172 NHL games for Jacob Larson, which is actually a little more than I expected it to be. 191 AHL games where he has 57 points plus 5. And last year with Belleville had 17 points in 55 games. So you know what? A nice depth reacquisition. You get it at a league minimum cap hit. I like it for Jacob Larson. So
good deal.
Good on him. And especially like you move on from Aspero, there's a left defenseman that you can have in your top 4 in Belleville. And he's not even like that old. He's 26.
He's only 26. Yeah.
He's 26 for the whole season. I think this is a great, like him, Hetherington, and Philip Nordberg if he comes over, or someone of that stature, maybe a Tyler Clevin if he does get squeezed out numbers wise in training camp, but just a good veteran presence to have down in Belleville. All right, Pilsy, final thoughts on today's show. And answer me this. Why were the Sens so quiet? Why was the league so quiet? Not much movement at all.
Ross, I told you last night in our episode, you had all these ideas cooked up about trades. And I said, sorry to be a wet blanket, but the only deals we're going to see are moving up and down in minor deals. And that's exactly what happened. So all of that hype kind of for naught. All of the big deals happened before the draft. Look, the Ottawa Senators were quiet today, Ross, because the draft isn't where they want to excel and not where they're going to make big changes in their organization. And the Alex DeBrincat situation, look, they need to be patient with it. They cannot give him away for pennies on the dollar. They paid a decent price to get him. They only got him for 1 year, and he's without a contract right now and has submitted a list of teams he's willing to be interested in. So I think you just got to hold tight and you got to wait and you got to try to really find that proper deal here, because now that free agency is around the corner, Ross, that's going to really tighten things on teams' cap abilities when you're looking at adding a guy that's going to make north of $8 million here.
Man, forget around the corner. The draft's just down the street. We talk about the quick turnaround here. Tomorrow's show, I mean to say, we're going to do our full preview because we are 2 days away from free agency. 2 days away. And we should also find out sooner rather than later about the development camp roster for the Ottawa Senators. We will be boots on the ground. July 3rd is the plan. Next Monday, we will be boots on the ground. So if you're at the Sensplex, stop by, say what up, and we'd love to see. Hopefully, we get to see Nikitin, all these new guys for the Ottawa Senators. And I'm interested to see, is Roby Arventi, who's had 3 pro seasons, but is still he would be 2 years younger than some guys who are out there. Where do they draw the line here? We know Igor Sokolov has graduated. We know Angus Crookshank has graduated. Those guys will not be at dev camp. I can tell you that Stephen Halliday will. Philip Nordberg will be a fun guy to watch. Nobody's even seen him. He hasn't been in Ottawa. I'd imagine Tyler Klevin will be there as well because he hasn't had any rookie camp yet with Ottawa.
Tyler Boucher, Oscar Pettersson.
Yeah, some great names showing up at Sens Dev Camp. We're looking forward to that and more. So let us know in the comments, what free agent should the Senators pursue? And has your mind changed at all after a quiet draft where maybe it's going to be harder to move guys in trade? So is there a guy in free agency who you are looking at as a guy who could really help the Sens get to the next level? That'll be on tomorrow's Locked On Senators. I hope you enjoyed all of our draft coverage. It is one of our favorite times of the year, and I hope that the draft profiles and everything that we've done over the last month has been worth it in terms of making the draft an enjoyable experience, whether the Sens have picks or not. It was really cool for us. I enjoyed the heck out of it, and I know I can speak for Pilsy the same way. For today, we say goodbye. It's time for us to have a little sleep, wake up, and then turn the page to free agency. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan, and this has been the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.